Good morning. On a peaceful Sunday afternoon in June 1961, just months after leaving the presidency, Dwight D. Eisenhower was tending his vegetable garden at his Gettysburg, Pennsylvania farm when he noticed a young couple had gotten their car stuck in the mud on a rural road bordering his property. Without hesitation, the 70-year-old former Supreme Commander during World War II grabbed a rope from his barn, trudged through the muck in his overalls, and spent 45 minutes helping push their beat-up Chevy back onto solid ground. That young couple, newlyweds Tom and Susan from Ohio, on their honeymoon had no idea they were being rescued by the man who'd led the Allied forces to victory and served 2 terms as president. Eisenhower never mentioned it, introducing himself simply as Ike, the farmer next door. And chatting about their travels while hauling on the rope with mud splattered across his work clothes, when they finally freed the car, Mamie appeared with a thermos of lemonade and homemade cookies, inviting the bewildered couple onto the porch. For an hour, they swapped marriage advice, fishing tips, and stories of road trips, with Ike sharing memories of journeys he'd taken with Mamie decades earlier. Only 20 miles down the road, when they showed a gas station attendant their photo with the nice farmer who helped us, someone gasped, "That's President Eisenhower." Tom later wrote a thank you note, and the former president responded, "The pleasure was all ours. Mamie and I loved meeting young people starting their adventures together. Remember, a good marriage is like farming. It takes patience, hard work, and knowing some days you're just going to get muddy. Stay happy, your friend, Ike." Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." This anecdote is also perfect proof for William Wordsworth quote, "The best portion of a good man's life? His little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love." For here was a man, a neighbor, who helped strangers, who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty, and someone who measured his worth not by past glory, but by present kindness, proving true greatness is what you do when no one's looking. When I thought about Eisenhower's kindness, I realized that here was the word I was looking for when I was thinking about what does it mean to be the light of the world, a Christ light, a light that is more than showing the way but drives out darkness. Kindness is something both greater and simpler than niceness. It's a stilling of the mind, a shift in focus and attention just long enough to consider what is most helpful to the other in a given situation. Kindness is a word I remembered being used when describing agape love, the highest form of love, the level of love to which we aspire as Christians. Agape love is defined as unconditional, self-sacrificial, and voluntary, focusing on the highest good of others without expecting anything in return. Rooted in Greek, it is not a mere emotion, but a conscious decision to act with unshakable goodwill, benevolence, and commitment, even towards enemies. It is unconditional and sacrificial. It is given freely, regardless of the recipient's merit or actions, often requiring personal sacrifice. It's a choice, not a feeling. It is deliberate. It's a deliberate intellectual decision of the will rather than a spontaneous emotional reaction. It is an act of benevolence. It is characterized by active, invincible goodwill that seeks the well-being of others, often referred to as unconquerable kindness. God is the source of this love, which unlike philia, known as friendship, or eros, or romantic love, agape does not require a return or reciprocation. I knew that this was not the type of love where one just falls in love. This love requires work. It requires attention. It requires self-awareness in order to be authentic in its spontaneous expression. This requires some rigor to be the unconquerable kindness of agape love. With this in mind, I looked at today's gospel reading differently. Upon my first reading, these 3 quotes from Jesus seemed to be unrelated to each other. But after reflecting on agape love and kindness, I began to see the gospel readings as a challenge. Taken together, it seems to be saying, do you have what it takes to follow Jesus? Do you have salt in your character? Because you will be challenged. Do you have the enduring kindness and attention needed to be a light to the world? Can you push back darkness? Do you have the courage and strength to be righteous in order to fulfill the law and the prophets? Currently, the situation seems to grow more dire. The language we hear expressed on a daily basis is not unifying or uplifting. The words we hear used are cruel, divisive, fearful, and tribal in nature. There is a continual churning and building of anxiety and fear with all its corrosive effects. The author and poet Tracy K. Smith has written, "Fear stuns, blurs out our options, convinces us it is better to fall silent and still to consent, to go on along and trust that eventually everything will feel normal again. Fear, running its course long enough, convinces us the moral disequilibrium in which we find ourselves is normalcy. Fear dissuades us from believing our bodies, our hearts, our deepest memories. Fear is an isolating, alienating technology. At its most dangerous, fear keeps us from facing or even fully contemplating what, for our own survival, we must endeavor to change. The opposite of love is not hatred or rancor, but fear." "Nothing beats kindness," said the horse. "It sits quietly beyond all things." That's a quote from a book called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. We must remember kindness, and love beats fear and darkness. Can you ever remember a time when you gave or received love or kindness and felt afraid at the same time? It's not possible. It's where the key to where the light is, and we carry it with us all the time. We just have to remember to reach into our pockets and take it out. The writer George Sanders has written that there are 3 things of which we need to be aware that stand between us and kindness. 1, you're not permanent. 2, you're not the most important thing. And 3, you are not separate. These are all statements made in different ways in the Gospels. To be kindness, to be Christ's light in the world, I believe is like being a part of what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called the long arc of justice. It is incumbent on us to keep at it, to get the work done. There's a commercial out now on TV that I find humorous and also think gets at our individual responsibility in achieving our desired results. The scene begins with 2 young women at a table talking in a coffee shop. One woman is talking about her relationship with her boyfriend and wonders if he's afraid of commitment. When she asks her friend what she thinks, her friend is barely able to pull her attention away from her cell phone and just rolls her eyes and goes, "Totally." At this point, the first woman yells, "Bridgewater, you're in." At which point, former football player Teddy Bridgewater takes the second woman's place at the table with a comment in the background, "Teddy Bridgewater, backup listener." With intense focus, he puts his hands on his stacked fists, looks at the woman and says, "Go." The young woman then repeats her concerns about her boyfriend, to which Bridgewater responds, "You think he's afraid of commitment? You're not a mechanic. It's not your job to fix him." The commercial goes on to say how much easier life would be if we all had backups. My point in sharing this story is twofold. One is that being present and listening deeply for what others are saying is one of the best gifts we can offer each other. The other is that the commercial is right, that things would be easier if we had backups. But that's not real life, and that is part of the problem. We are too concerned about our comfort and not on the larger issues and needs that are not being dealt with around us. That's why we each do the hard work we do, because there are no backups. There is a saying that goes, "Who does the hard things? He, she that can." So let's go. Amen.